As the Elysium approached the core of the Nexus, the void around them grew denser with streams of vibrant energy. The ship seemed to hum in resonance, its systems adapting to the ever-shifting environment. A massive structure loomed ahead, a colossal crystalline orb suspended in a web of glowing filaments. Terra's voice echoed on the bridge. "This is the heart of the Nexus. Scans indicate that the final challenge awaits within. It's unlike anything we've encountered before." Captain Voss stood at the helm, his gaze fixed on the orb. "Prepare the ship. We've come too far to stop now." As the Elysium moved closer, the orb emitted a pulse of light that enveloped the ship. In an instant, the crew found themselves transported, not physically, but mentally, into a shared vision. They stood together on a vast, open plain under a sky filled with swirling galaxies. A voice filled the air, unmistakably the Keeper's. "You have proven your unity and your resolve. Now, you must face the greatest test of all, responsibility. The knowledge you seek holds immense power. To wield it is to accept the consequences of its use. You must decide whether your species is ready." Before them, two pathways appeared, stretching endlessly into the horizon. One path shimmered with light, its surface reflecting the promise of progress, innovation, and boundless knowledge. The other path was dark and unyielding, a void that seemed to swallow all light. "What does it mean?" Alara whispered, her voice barely audible. The Keeper's voice answered. "The path of light will grant you the secrets of the Nexus, opening the doors to unlimited potential. But misuse of this knowledge will lead to devastation beyond comprehension. The path of darkness requires sacrifice. It denies access to the Nexus, but ensures that its power cannot be abused." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Greaves was the first to speak. "How are we supposed to decide something like this? Who are we to make this call for humanities?" Voss stepped forward, his expression grave. "We're not just deciding for ourselves. This is for every life that exists now, and every life that ever will." Alara's voice trembled as she spoke. "The knowledge could save billions, cure diseases, and wars, unite civilizations. But the risk?" Voss nodded. "The risk is that someone someday will abuse it." As the crew debated, their surroundings shifted, showing visions of what each choice could bring. The path of light revealed worlds transformed into utopias, but also scenes of catastrophic misuse. Planets consumed by war, entire civilizations annihilated. The path of darkness showed stagnation, but also stability. A universe untouched by the Nexus's potential dangers. Finally, Voss turned to the crew. "We decide this together. No single person should bear this responsibility." After a long silence, the crew reached a consensus. They stood together, facing the paths, and Voss spoke with unwavering resolve. "Our species isn't ready. Not yet. We choose the path of darkness, to protect what we cannot yet understand." The Keeper's voice returned, carrying an unexpected warmth. "Wisely chosen. To forego power for the greater good is a testament to true responsibility. Your decision ensures the Nexus remains safeguarded until the time is right." The vision dissolved, and the crew found themselves back on the Elysium. The crystalline orb pulsed once more before fading, its light scattering into the void. Terra's voice broke the silence. "The Nexus is retreating from our dimension. It will remain inaccessible until its guardians deem us ready." The crew sat in contemplative silence, the weight of their decisions settling upon them. Voss finally spoke, his voice steady. "We didn't find what we were looking for, but we found something more important. A chance to protect the future." As the Elysium turned back toward familiar stars, the crew knew their journey wasn't just about exploration. It was about defining what it meant to be human. The Elysium cruised through the darkness, its once bustling corridors now quiet as the crew reflected on the enormity of their decision. Each member carried the weight of what had transpired in their own way. Alara sat in the observatory, staring at the streaks of distant galaxies through the glass. Greaves joined her, setting down a steaming cup of synthetic tea. "Still thinking about it?" he asked, breaking the silence. She nodded. "How can I not? We stood at the edge of everything. every answer we've ever sought, and we walked away. Greaves shrugged. Maybe that's the point. It's easy to take knowledge, to grasp at power. It's harder to say no, to admit we're not ready. Alara turned to face him, a faint smile playing on her lips. I just hope history remembers us for what we chose to protect, not what we gave up. Meanwhile, in the engineering bay, Terra's holographic form flickered to life beside Voss. He was recalibrating a set of navigation systems, his movements methodical and precise. You carry the burden well, Captain, Terra observed, her voice softer than usual. He paused, glancing at her. Do I? I keep wondering if we did the right thing. Terra tilted her head. The Keeper deemed your choice wise. Perhaps the value lies not in the immediate outcome, but in the integrity of the decision itself. Voss exhaled slowly. I hope you're right. For now, we move forward. That's all we can do. Back in the crew quarters, murmurs of conversation filled the air. The younger members of the team speculated about what lay ahead for their journey, their imaginations still alight with the possibilities of the Nexus. It's not the end, one of them said, her voice brimming with quiet optimism. The Nexus isn't gone forever. Maybe someday, when we're ready, it'll return. And so, the Elysium continued its voyage, its crew bound by a newfound understanding of their role in the vastness of the cosmos. They had faced the unimaginable and emerged with a decision that defined not just their mission, but the essence of humanity itself. In the silence of space, the ship's engines hummed steadily, a quiet reminder that every journey, no matter how monumental, is only a single step in the infinite expanse of possibility. As the Elysium drifted farther from the Nexus's former location, the crew began to reorient themselves to the routines of exploration. The vast unknown still stretched before them, promising discoveries that wouldn't demand such profound choices, at least for now. Captain Voss called for a meeting in the central conference room. The atmosphere was lighter than it had been in days, but a sense of purpose lingered in every glance exchanged between the crew members. Before we move on, Voss began, standing at the head of the table, I want to take a moment to acknowledge what we've been through. The Nexus wasn't just a test of intelligence or survival, it was a test of who we are. And we passed because of every one of you. Greaves leaned back in his chair, smirking. Not every day you get told you've saved the universe by doing nothing. A ripple of laughter broke the tension, and even Voss smiled. True, Greaves. But it's not every day you're faced with a decision like that. Alara spoke up, her tone thoughtful. The Nexus isn't gone forever. It felt like it was watching us, evaluating. Do you think it'll come back when it deems humanity ready? Terra's hologram flickered to life in the center of the room. That is a logical hypothesis. The Keeper implied the Nexus was not static but adaptive. It may assess humanity again when it perceives significant growth in our maturity and unity as a species. Let's hope it's a long time before we have to make that call again, Greaves said, though his grin had softened into something more reflective. Voss nodded. For now, we continue our mission. There are other mysteries out there, ones we might be ready to solve. And we carry the lessons of the Nexus with us. The crew dispersed, energized by their captain's words. In the days that followed, the Elysium resumed its exploratory course, scanning nebulae, charting distant star systems, and cataloging phenomena that had never been seen before. But something had changed. The crew carried a sense of responsibility now that was deeper than their duty to the mission. It was a responsibility to themselves, to their world, and to the countless lives yet to come. In the quiet moments between discoveries, they would find themselves gazing at the stars, wondering about the Nexus. They pondered what humanity needed to achieve before it could truly claim the knowledge hidden in its depths. Alara, in one such moment of solitude, whispered to herself, someday, we'll be ready. And when that day comes, the Nexus will find us again. The Elysium pressed onward, its path uncertain but full of promise. And somewhere in the infinite expanse of the universe, the Nexus waited, its light dimmed but not extinguished, watching and waiting for the day humanity would return. As the Elysium ventured deeper into uncharted territories, the crew began to settle into the new rhythm of their mission. The quiet hum of the ship was a constant reminder of their commitment to exploration, yet beneath the routine, a silent unease lingered. The Nexus had tested them, forced them to confront the unthinkable, and now, with that challenge behind them, they couldn't help but wonder if they would ever face something like it again. Months passed in the isolation of deep space. The stars outside the ship's observation windows became familiar markers, yet the vast expanse around them felt more profound than ever. The crew had come to rely on one another in ways they never had before. Their shared experience at the Nexus had bonded them, creating a silent understanding that transcended words. One day, as the Elysium passed through a particularly dense star cluster, Terra's systems detected an anomaly in the distance, an unexpected gravitational pull, a disturbance unlike anything they had encountered before. "Captain Voss, you'll want to see this," Terra's voice echoed through the ship's comm system. Voss wasted no time and made his way to the bridge. "What is it, Terra?" "An unidentified object is rapidly approaching our position. It's unlike anything we've recorded before," Terra reported, the usual calm in her voice now tinged with something resembling curiosity, or perhaps caution. On the main screen, a swirling mass of energy appeared, its edges distorted by an immense gravitational field. It shimmered, as though made of liquid light, constantly shifting and warping. "Is it a black hole?" Greaves asked, his voice tense. "No," Terra responded, her tone precise. "The gravitational anomaly doesn't match any known black hole or celestial phenomenon. But it appears to be a portal of some kind." The crew exchanged nervous glances. The last portal they'd encountered had been the entrance to the Nexus, a place that tested them to their very limits. Was this another test? Another challenge they would have to face? Alara stood up, her eyes locked on the screen. "Do we have a choice but to go through it?" Voss pondered for a moment, the weight of their past decisions still fresh in his mind. The Nexus had given them a profound understanding of the importance of responsibility and unity. This new anomaly, this portal, could offer answers, but it could also present risks they couldn't fully comprehend. "We need to approach with caution," he finally said. "Prepare for a scan. Let's see if we can gather any more data before making a decision." The Elysium slowed, its sensors extending outward to analyze the strange portal. As the scans came through, the readings were baffling. There was no sign of what lay beyond the portal, only an endless stream of fluctuating energy. But one thing was clear. Whatever this was, it was not a natural phenomenon. It was artificial, and it had been waiting. "Captain, the portal seems to be calling to us," Terra noted, her voice almost inaudible. "It is as though it's aware of us." The crew held their breath, the implications of those words weighing heavily on their minds. What could be waiting for them on the other side? Was this another test, or was it something even more profound, a revelation about the nature of the universe itself? "We'll proceed slowly," Voss said. "Keep all systems on alert. If there's even the slightest chance this could be another part of the Nexus, we need to be prepared." The Elysium crept closer to the portal, its engines humming quietly in the vastness of space. The portal's swirling energy intensified, pulling the ship in with an irresistible force. It was a moment of profound silence, a quiet before the storm. Then, just as the ship crossed the threshold, the portal shimmered brightly, and everything went dark. For a brief moment, the crew felt disoriented, as if the fabric of space itself had been torn apart. But when the light returned, the Elysium was no longer in the same place. The stars outside were unfamiliar, strange constellations hanging in the sky like distant, uncharted worlds. "Where are we?" Alara whispered, her voice thick with disbelief. "I don't know," Voss replied, his eyes scanning the new space outside. "But it seems like we've entered a completely different dimension or timeline." Terra's voice came through, now more urgent. "Captain, I am detecting an intense energy field ahead. It's not just a gravitational anomaly, it's a living, breathing entity." A deep, resonant hum echoed through the ship's systems. The crew was no longer sure if they were explorers or intruders in a realm far beyond their understanding. Whatever they had stumbled upon, it was clear that the rules of space and time no longer applied. Voss stood tall, looking at the crew. We've made it this far together. Whatever comes next, we face it as one. And as the Elysium drifted deeper into this strange, new reality, the crew of the starship realized that the greatest challenge of all might be just beginning, one that would test them not only as explorers, but as the stewards of a future they could scarcely imagine. The Elysium drifted through the unfamiliar expanse, the strange new dimension pressing in from all sides. Outside the ship, a kaleidoscope of colors and shifting geometries filled the space. The stars, the familiar markers of navigation, had disappeared, replaced by patterns that defied all known laws of physics. Time seemed to warp and bend here, as though the ship itself was caught between moments, suspended in a reality where everything and nothing existed at once. Inside, the crew gathered on the bridge, their eyes fixed on the holographic displays. The anomaly they had entered was unlike anything they'd seen before. It wasn't just a new part of the universe, it was something more, something ancient and powerful. "Captain, I'm detecting strange fluctuations in our power systems," Tara reported, her tone strained. "It's as if the ship systems are being influenced by something outside our control. Can you isolate it?" Voss asked, his voice steady despite the growing tension in the room. "I'm trying," Tara replied, her digital form flickering slightly. "But the energy source is unpredictable. It feels like the ship itself is being pulled into sync with whatever intelligence resides in this dimension." Alara, standing beside Voss, peered out into the infinite sea of swirling patterns. "It's almost like we're being watched or guided. Do you think this could be the presence we sensed back at the Nexus?" "Possibly," Voss said, his brow furrowed. "But we don't know enough yet. Tara, keep monitoring our systems, and Greaves, get ready to adjust course if anything changes." The crew fell into a tense silence, the only sound the quiet hum of the Elysium's engines. Every shift in the ship's systems felt like a message, an indication that they were not alone in this strange dimension. Whatever this place was, it had a consciousness, one that was beginning to make its presence known. Hours passed. Time felt distorted here, as though it was stretched and compressed at random. The Elysium continued to drift through the cosmic labyrinth, the crew constantly adjusting their trajectory as Tara guided them through the fluctuating energy fields. Then, without warning, a new sound filled the ship. It was a low, vibrating hum that seemed to come from every corner of the Elysium, resonating in the bones of each crew member. It was a voice, or something resembling a voice. The ship's speakers crackled, and then a deep, otherworldly tone echoed through the bridge. "You have crossed into the domain of the forgotten. Your journey is not one of chance." The crew froze. The voice was unlike anything they had ever heard, rich, ancient, and filled with an almost primordial power. It reverberated in their minds as much as in the ship's speakers. Voss, his face pale, exchanged glances with the crew. Who are you?" "We are the keepers of the beyond," the voice answered, its words both soothing and unsettling. "We have waited for those who dare challenge the boundary of existence. You are the first to venture into this realm since the last reckoning." Alara's breath caught in her throat. "The last reckoning?" she whispered, but her voice was drowned by the voice's next words. "Yes. You have crossed the threshold of the forgotten. And now, you must decide, will you return to your world, or will you embrace what lies ahead?" The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Voss could feel the weight of it pressing down on him, as if the very fabric of reality was asking him to choose between safety and an unknown fate. "Can we even return?" Voss asked, more to himself than anyone else. "The choice is yours," the voice responded, a hint of finality in its tone. "But know this. Once you cross this final threshold, there is no turning back. You will not simply be travelers. You will become part of this dimension, bound to it forever." The crew was silent. They had been explorers, pioneers. But now they were faced with a decision far greater than any they had imagined. The voice had not offered a way back. They were not simply walking into a new frontier. They were being asked to become part of something far larger, something ancient and profound. Alara spoke first. "We didn't come this far to turn back now. We've always chosen to move forward." Greaves nodded slowly. "I've got a bad feeling about this, but we didn't get this far by walking away." Voss stood at the helm, his mind racing. The crew trusted him to make the final decision, but this was a choice that transcended even his command. It was a choice about destiny, about what kind of beings they would become in the face of the unknown. "Terra," he said finally, "prepare the ship. We're going forward. Whatever this place is, we face it together." With that, the Elysium began to move again, its engines humming steadily as it sailed deeper into the realm of the forgotten. The portal behind them closed, and the stars outside grew dimmer as they ventured further into the heart of an ancient, mysterious domain. And in the silence that followed, the crew could only wonder what awaited them in the uncharted dark, and what it meant to truly cross a threshold where reality itself was at the mercy of forces beyond their comprehension. As the Elysium ventured deeper into the domain of the forgotten, the crew's sense of time and space continued to twist in ways they couldn't fully comprehend. The once familiar surroundings of the ship had started to feel strange, as though the very walls and floors of the Elysium were shifting, breathing, becoming part of the alien landscape they now inhabited. The voice of the keepers of the beyond still echoed in their minds, a constant, eerie presence. The words lingered in their thoughts, gnawing at their resolve. There was no going back. Once they crossed the final threshold, they would be forever bound to this dimension. Yet, for all the fear and uncertainty, there was an undeniable pull toward what lay ahead. As the crew moved silently through the ship, their once clear mission had become blurred by the overwhelming nature of their new reality. Alara, more than anyone, felt the weight of the decision pressing on her chest. She had always believed in exploration, in pushing boundaries, but now she questioned whether they were chasing answers or simply wandering into a trap set long ago by forces beyond their understanding. "Captain," Greaves said quietly, his voice laced with unease. "Have you noticed anything odd about the crew? It's like we're not ourselves anymore." Voss, who had been staring out into the void, turned to face his crew. "What do you mean?" "I can't explain it," Greaves replied, rubbing the back of his neck. "It's as if we're not in control of our own thoughts. Like something's feeding on us, subtly altering our emotions, our perceptions." Voss frowned, glancing around the bridge. It was true. There was a tension in the air, an unspoken shift that none of them could deny. Even Terra's usual calm presence seemed to be under strain. Her interface, once smooth and composed, flickered intermittently. "Terra, can you run a full diagnostic on the ship systems? Check for any anomalies in our neural interfaces or crew health." "Yes, Captain. Running diagnostic now." As Terra began her scan, a strange hum reverberated through the ship. It wasn't the usual sound of the ship's engines. It was deeper, more resonant, as if the ship itself was somehow alive, pulsing in sync with the very dimension they had entered. Suddenly, a strange vision flashed in front of the crew. It was brief but vivid, a scene from the past. A fleeting moment from a distant memory. A landscape of swirling, ethereal energy, much like the space outside the ship, but this time there were figures, silent, shadowy beings standing at the edge of an abyss, watching them. Their faces were obscured, but their eyes glowed with an unnatural light, their gaze piercing through the fabric of space itself. Voss snapped out of the vision, blinking rapidly, disoriented. "What was that? Did anyone else see that?" Alara nodded slowly, her face pale. "I did. It was like a memory, not our own, though. Someone, or something, was showing us something." Greaves looked around, his expression tense. "We're not alone here, are we? Whatever we're seeing, it's not just an illusion. It's real." The ship shook suddenly, as though something had struck it, a deep reverberation that rattled the hull. The crew stumbled, their bodies bracing against the sudden force. Terra's interface flickered, and the lights throughout the ship dimmed. "Captain, I'm detecting an intense energy pulse coming from ahead. It's not natural." The frequency is alien, Tara reported, her voice strained. Voss stood up, his mind racing. Set a course toward the energy source. We need to understand what's happening. Greaves, Elara, prepare for any situation. Whatever we're dealing with, we need to face it head-on. As the Elysium moved toward the energy pulse, the ship systems began to flicker again. Lights came on and off erratically, and the walls began to hum with an eerie resonance. The crew had entered a place where even the fabric of their reality seemed to be unraveling, pulled apart by the forces of the dimension they were in. The energy source was now visible on the ship's sensors, a pulsating, fluctuating mass of light. As they drew closer, it seemed to take shape, a gigantic structure, partially floating, partially embedded in the fabric of the dimension itself. It resembled a tower, ancient and imposing, its surface covered in strange markings and symbols that seemed to shift and change with every passing moment. Voss stared at the structure, a feeling of dread creeping up his spine. "This is it," he murmured. "This is what we came for." Elara stepped forward. "But is this what we were meant to find? Or are we walking into something we don't understand? The Nexus, this place, it's all connected somehow. But how?" "Only one way to find out," Voss said, determination hardening his voice. "We're going inside. Tara, scan the structure for any signs of life or movement." "Scanning," Tara replied. The readings came back with disturbing results. No sign of life. However, the structure is alive. It's emitting neural energy, similar to what we've encountered in the Nexus. It seems to be communicating, but in a way we can't decipher. Voss turned to his crew. "Prepare yourselves. Whatever this is, we're going in." As the Elysium approached the tower, the crew could feel a shift in the air. The temperature in the ship dropped slightly, and the very energy around them seemed to pulsate in rhythm with the heartbeat of the structure. There was no turning back now. Whatever lay beyond this threshold would shape the fate of the crew, and perhaps the future of their entire universe. They were no longer mere explorers. They had crossed into something far greater, and the journey ahead would test them in ways they couldn't yet fathom. But they would face it together, driven by the same unrelenting desire to uncover the mysteries that lay beyond the stars.